Welcome to the Breakup Recovery Podcasts by your host, Barbara Stevens. Discover the wisdom and remarkable insights of Barbara Stevens, breakup recovery mentor, author, and public speaker. Barbara offers programs and solutions for any breakup so you can turn your life around, create lasting changes for the better, and embrace life again.
Hello and welcome to my podcast, Breakup Recovery. This is episode number 024. I'm Barbara Stevens and I have the second part to my interview with Alvia Turney. If you remember, I have interviewed Alvia on a previous occasion, episode number 017, about her business, Act for Tomorrow. Today is the second part of my interview with Alvia about her own personal journey. If you've listened to part 1, which is episode number 023, you would know that Alvia received a phone call one day out of the blue from a mystery man that wanted to meet with her. This man seemed to know an awful lot about her and her family and handed over an envelope that would change her life forever. The word infidelity came as such a shock and was never something that she had considered her husband would be a part of. But this information left her feeling scared, confused, and physically drained. It was as if she had been punched in the stomach and unable to process or decide what to do about her situation and where to go from here. Listen now to part 2, and I hope you find Alvia's honest and courageous story as inspiring as I did. You had no clear direction on where you wanted to go in terms of your relationship with your husband.
Correct. Part of that comes from your personal upbringing as well. Mine was, he's made a mistake, it's over, and he was saying to me, let's work on our relationship. So my upbringing sort of said, well, everyone makes mistakes, give them a second chance. But that was just something that was such a big decision to make in this early stage. Sadly, my emotions did take over and I started to feel very suicidal. There was too much confusion and too many emotions running through me. We had moved into a new house, didn't know my neighbours, and I remember backing out of the driveway one day when the news had now hit just 2 weeks. My parents knew and everyone was trying to sort of say, well, you'll know what to do, as time moves on. But it didn't feel like that for me. I was just drowning in emotional mayhem. I reversed out of the driveway and my new neighbour across the street had just come running across and she knocked on my window. I wasn't with it and I actually jumped because I didn't see her there or anything, and she said, oh, I was hoping to have a coffee with you today. Will you be coming back? And I said, no, I'm going to the shopping centre, in broken, words. And she said, well, when you come back, just pop in. I'm right across the street. And I said, oh, thank you, but no, I won't do that. And she stopped and looked at me and she said, I know what you're going through. I will be here. To which I thought, oh my goodness, how does everybody know my business? But it wasn't. It was the fact that that lovely lady had been through something similar herself and can see it written all over my face. I will always be grateful to this lady because when I came back from shopping, she appeared again like some sort of magic fairy, and there she was in my garage as my garage door was opening. And she said, come over for coffee. And I said, I don't know who you are. You don't know any of my business. And I don't want to talk to you. And she said, please come over. I have been through an affair myself and I know what it feels like. I was very grateful that this lady actually took the trouble to do this, and I went over and I said, how do you know about my situation? She said, I don't. I can just see it written all over your face. And thanks to her, she checked on me, Barbara, twice a day, 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. Because when you're feeling suicidal, you have to plan it. You've got to take the children to school and then come home and do something. Or you're thinking to yourself, I've got to do it before school time because then otherwise I can't pick them up. And this lady was just there every day, knocking on my door, making sure I stayed safe. And as the emotional drama and roller coaster slowed down and I began to become in control of my emotional state, those tendencies went away. But I don't know what would have happened actually if she hadn't knocked on my door. It's what happened, and it was for the best.
A wonderful neighbour.
Really wonderful.
So, Alvia, how long did it take you to decide whether you wanted to continue a relationship with your husband?
As I say, the news actually hit after the event when the affair was over. So I had to come to terms with the fact that someone had made a mistake, and did I want to forgive? Did I want to move on? But I didn't find that possible for me. I found understanding, or I found something, but something deep down inside me just said, no, I can't remain in the relationship. And when I tell you that it took a very long time to leave, because I tried very hard to find that forgiveness and move on and acceptance in a way that kept the marriage working. But sadly, my husband had another affair and it was time for me to go. But that was actually 5 years after that man meeting me in the park.
So, Alvia, when you finally made that decision that you no longer wanted to continue or work on your relationship with your husband, what did you do then? What steps did you take for you to move forward with your life?
Actually saying goodbye to somebody, or saying the relationship's over, or you don't want to be with them, I found it too confronting. I found that very, very difficult. I didn't know how to put it into words. I met him once for coffee and said, I can't continue. And he talked me back into staying. And this is why it took so long. And even though you're so desperately unhappy, you stay for what you say is the children, or you think you'll stay until they finish school. Whatever it was, I kept going back. But eventually, because there had been another relationship, I felt that I had to leave, that I was foolish to stay. And I still found it really difficult to actually, on the day, say it is over. I was very fortunate to have the support of my 2 sons, one who'd finished school by this stage and one who was in grade 12, who were there with me on the day where I sat down with my ex-husband and said, look, I can't do this anymore. And the boys supported the choice. They said, look, Mum, in front of him, Mum and Dad, you have tried to work on this and it hasn't worked. So it is time. They basically ended it for me. It still took us another 6 months of being under the same roof, and it's difficult. It's really very difficult to all remain in the same house while you're selling the property and try and stay amicable. And we didn't stay amicable.
What steps did you take personally for you to recover from this shock, this end of your relationship? So what did you do for yourself?
Nothing. Because I did nothing for myself along the lines of, say, exercise, I did see a counsellor and I did eventually meet a fabulous psychologist. However, I wish I had belonged to something, like a rowing group or even a coffee mums group. Something would have helped to have had support, but I became very insular. I found it very embarrassing and uncomfortable, and I went into my shell. The psychologist gave me strategies of how to cope with my husband because he was very controlling. And when we lived under the same roof, even though we were separated, he still controlled a lot of what took place. It was the emptying of the bank accounts which pushed me way over the edge, and that's when I really realised I had to get away from him because there was no money now. I worked, he worked, and it was just fortunate that who I worked for insisted I had my own bank account. Otherwise, there would literally have been the 64 cents that was left in the bank.
So do you think your boss helped you to move forward by insisting that you had your own bank account?
Yes, and my boss was wonderful at that time. She also, when the money was gone, she said, you need to get out of this unhealthy environment and we will help you. Now, I was working in a real estate office at the time. So, of course, we had rental properties. So she said, just get to the office. And she said, and don't worry about money. We will put money in your bank account. I don't want you to have that fear hanging over you. Get to the office and we will help sort things out. And it's quite a sad story, Barbara. I got to the office and the property manager had already been told I was coming. And I said to her, do you need a rental reference? Because I was in such a shocked state of mind. And they said, no, that's fine. And so 2 days later, with my youngest son and a removalist, I left the family home.
So, Alvia, do you think the support of others helped you to move forward, helped you to find yourself again, and helped you to rediscover who you are and what you want in life?
Yes, had I had someone like what we've created with Act for Tomorrow, I think the process would have been quicker. I am very grateful to, as I mentioned, my neighbour, then my boss, who took control and made the decisions that I seemed incapable of making. For example, leaving the home and showing me how, giving me a list, ring the ring the Energex, and having an actual rental property to move in. The psychologist who gave me the tips of how to respond and how to cope with overwhelm. There wasn't one body that someone in that situation can go to. It's time, yes, is a healer, but the time clock doesn't even start because you haven't gone through your divorce at this stage and your actual financial separation. You still got to face that journey in front of you. So the next step I, again, was encouraged to do was to see a solicitor who I thought would just take over my separation and handle it. I didn't realise what was to come.
And what was to come?
What was to come was an 18-month journey of court, mediation, arbitration, and back to trial. I thought that the solicitor would handle everything, but I was mistaken. I didn't realise that you can negotiate a deal without going to court. I didn't realise that there is a system in place which safeguards both parties, and when you look at that, which is called waiting, there is absolutely no need whatsoever to use the court system to negotiate with your ex-partner. It's a fair system. It just needs to be shown to you.
Alvia, do you think after your court case and everything was finalised, do you think that was the catalyst for you to actually start your own life again?
Yes, I actually did eat, pray, love. I packed up and travelled the world for 6 months. It gave me time to myself. I'd never been on my own. I'd been with my parents, to meeting my husband, to being together with somebody for 23 years. I had never actually lived and made decisions by myself on my own. And it's wonderful. It's a lovely journey that opens up. It's like for the first time you're a bud flowering. It's fabulous. And when you discover who you are, you realise little bits of your personality from your childhood start emerging. I've got to say that it's something that I'm so grateful for. And I even look back to those dark times and I just think everyone has a dark time, whether it's a marriage separation or a health issue or the loss of a family member. We all have something. And the most important thing is to find yourself and find your strengths. And for me, it's helping others. Use my experience to help other people.
How do you feel now about your husband and about your marriage and about the fact that he had an affair?
It's life. It's part of life. I hold no grudges against him. He was his own person going through whatever he went through at his time. Barbara, I have to take ownership of the fact that I chose him to marry him. That's also my responsibility. I found him attractive and chose to be married to this man. And it was just the journey of his life and my life.
So no animosity?
No, but that took time. That did take time. It wasn't until a few years after the court was all settled. And I have found forgiveness. There was a lot of unnecessary cruelty that happened with as I said, emptying bank accounts or items being dispersed for less than their value if they were. But, everyone's different.
Do you think using that word forgiveness is a key for you to start to move forward with your life and to build a life that you deserve?
Absolutely. Forgiveness and acceptance are the two words. When you know you have achieved forgiveness, when you no longer dwell and think about that situation, because now you've moved on to your new existence, your new way of life, and you're free of it. If you don't forgive, you carry around that pain, the burden of the pain, year after year, in fact, day after day. So forgiveness only comes, though, from accepting your play in that situation.
Thank you, Alvia, for being willing to share your story. I find your story inspiring and your honesty has been fantastic. The courage it took for you to actually go through your process for the length of time that you had to, and then to pack up and go away and travel for 6 months. That takes courage. Not a lot of people can do that. And thank you for sharing that story and how you did get over your breakup, the shock of it, and how you moved forward.
Thank you, Barbara. It's lovely. Thank you.
If you would like to hear previous Breakup Recovery podcasts, visit barbarastevens.com.au. Connect with Barbara Stevens on social media with Barbara Stevens Breakup Recovery Mentor on Facebook and at You'll Be Okay on Twitter. Read further blogs, view webinar replays, and download your free ebook, 3 Easy Steps to Surviving Your Breakup, and much more at barbarastevens.com.au.